Divine lifestyles, what that means to me is that means when you are living your passion and your purpose and you're living in alignment with your truth. Meaning that all those things that we think that we should be doing, going down those roads, becoming a doctor, doing all these different things that society tells us to do, which I did for many years. When we realize that there's something much deeper, there's a deeper calling inside of us, and we actually move towards that calling, step into that power, and then create our divine lifestyle. Which is something that I struggled with for most of my life, which is usually what happens when people start doing businesses. It's because of something they struggled with. And I struggled most of my life with really trying to figure out what my highest calling was. And what was I here on earth to do? And it was always a question I had from when I was a small little girl. But as I got older and I started, living in the world, I stopped listening to that inner voice and I started to do what I thought I was supposed to do. And okay, I'm going to get this corporate job. I'm going to work in media and I'm going to do all these different things. And I tried a million different careers. And I realized that's really not where I need to be. I'm not listening to my deepest self. And it wasn't until 8 years ago when I had lost my mother very suddenly that I kind of had this awakening and I realized, wow, life is really short. I better start doing what it is I'm here to do, what I'm called to do. And I like to say that Divine Lifestyles is part of, let your mess be your message. So let your experiences and your story shape your voice. And I think that that's really what this podcast is about. I love to highlight other people's stories because I think that there's so much power in sharing. Your story is going to speak to one person. My story might speak to another person. And I think Divine Lifestyles is a platform where we can just share stories of healing and transformation. Show, it's not just one story, right? On this podcast, you're going to hear people who have struggles with health, weight, body image, addiction, eating disorders, mindset shifts, physical struggles. Thank you for tuning into Divine Lifestyle, transforming your life with purpose. We share stories that feed your spirit, mind, and body, and I am your host, Tara Magalski, and today's guest is my spirit brother, Adam Sutt. Thank you, Adam, so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Adam weighed 300 pounds 2.5 years ago, was a type 2 diabetic, and a drug addict. Okay, I mean, that's a lot. So let's just start there.
Okay, we'll start there.
Let's start there and tell us, people watching and listening, what the catalyst moment was for you where you started making your amazing transformation. And today's guest is the beautiful Tennille Amor. Tennille is a singer-songwriter, philanthropist, public speaker, writer, actor, movement maker, role model, and Tennille Amor is more than music. That transformation for you?
I think that a big transition point in my life probably happened almost 2 years ago now, where I just decided that I wanted to become super clear with what I was doing and put more focus and energy into the direction of my music and just of my life's path. And so that was a time where I decided to become completely sober and transition from not taking full responsibility for everything that was happening in my life that I didn't like, or the things that were adding to my life in a negative way. And I think I just had this, I definitely did. I had a wake-up call, multiple wake-up calls, but one that really was a transition point of me being like, all right, well, now is the time, if I'm really going to do this, now is the time for me to get super clear and super focused and not leave room for anything that would be taking away from what my purpose in life is. So
my darkness, which, basically I was pretty violent in a lot of ways. And when I discovered drugs, it was as if I could exhale for the first time, and I thought that this was the answer, and for a while it was, and then what happened was that I became so I just dropped into that life, into the darkness, and by doing that, the further I got into that world, the further away I got from my heart center and my core beliefs. And basically, for 30 years, a day at a time, I was parceling out pieces of my soul.
I was hit head on by a drunk driver at 80 miles an hour, and it sent my car spinning into oncoming traffic, and the car behind me crashed into my door at around 70 miles an hour and crushed the entire left side of my body. In fact, I think there's a picture. I don't know if you can see this, but that's me, and that's the car right after. And the car looks like it's crushed in half because the left side of it was really smashed into my body, and immediately the left side of my body was devastated. My leg, my femur broke in half, my pelvis broke in 3 places, my arm broke in 2 pieces, my elbow was shattered, I severed the nerve in my arm, punctured my lung, ruptured my spleen, almost completely lost this ear. This eye socket was destroyed. This is all made of titanium now. And then the ceiling buckled and it sliced my head open. And immediately, unable to withstand the pain, I was in a coma, thankfully, right? I'm very thankful for that.
Came to a head for me on the night of February the 24th of this year, 2014, at 4:25 in the morning. I'd been given little signals that you're not on purpose. You're not bringing your gift. And I've been given glimpses of how great it could look, but it wasn't that I was afraid of dying. I think I was afraid of living. And in that moment, at 4:25 in the morning, God grabbed my heart, and He said, "Hal, you can do this here, and bring your gift forward that I've been working on you for years to bring forward, or I can take you back to the other side, and you can be a great little angel that'll help someone else bring this gift forward. But what you have is going to come out. I'd love for you to do it." It scared the living you-know-what out of me. And I got up during that moment, and I went and found my will, my physical will.
Yeah.
With my request and my desires for what would happen to me, and I put it at my front door, and I left my sister a note in case they found me the next morning.
I was like 13 years old. I went to the Philippines on a missions trip. My dad was covering like 150 churches or something like that at the time. He's a bishop. And so we were out there, we were ministering out in these jungles. Like, people didn't have running water. They didn't have food. They didn't have electricity or anything. So we would go in these tents and just like minister to these people and like pray for them and give them food and all this kind of good stuff. And I saw the power of God show up in those places. And so for me, it became something that wasn't just believed and just wasn't something that was just thought, but it was something that was acted out. And that was what was real for me.
So be a little bit more specific how you saw that, because some of our listeners might not understand that. How did you see the power of God working in those villages?
Like, I saw healings take place. I saw people who were broken, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually restored. Shared his truth about himself and his sexuality, and it went viral. It went on CNN, The View talked about it. I mean, it was all over YouTube, and we actually were the ones that first put it on YouTube, so it's not like we were hiding it or anything like that. But he really felt come out with that truth because of most of the teen suicides that were happening at that time.
All right, so now you have to give us a little taste.
Oh, God. All right.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but go.
Play it a couple of times. Every interview you do has divine guidance in it, Tara. And everybody needs to listen carefully and stop it and write it down and replay it and sit with it, meditate on what they're being given and see what fits for them, because you're going to give them a wealth and a treasure chest of great guidance on how to live a divine life.
Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get your weekly fix for all you spiritual gangsters. Any questions or comments, go to my site at taramagalski.com, drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for next week. I got the good stuff.